The little voice in the alley rain fell hard on the empty streets. The city was quiet except for the sound of water hitting metal and stone. Most people stayed inside. It was cold, wet, lonely. But David was out. He had just finished his late shift at the repair docks. His jacket was soaked, and his boots made a squishing sound with every step. He didn't complain. He never did. Life had been hard for him ever since he came to this alien planet. But he worked, ate alone, and slept. That was it, until tonight. As he passed by a narrow alley between two broken buildings, he heard it, a voice. Not loud, not clear, but small, soft, and full of pain. Help. David stopped, looked around. No one. Then again the voice came. Please, help. It was coming from the alley. He frowned and took a step closer. The alley was dark and narrow. One light flickered above, barely working. Trash was scattered all over the ground. A few rats ran across. He almost turned back. But then, he saw her, a small alien child. Thin, dirty, big glowing eyes full of tears. She looked no older than 6. Her skin was a pale green-blue and her clothes were torn and too big for her. She took a shaky step forward. Her voice trembled. Human. No one is helping my mother. She cries every night since my father left. David stood frozen. His heart beat faster. What's your name? He asked, kneeling down slowly. The child sniffled. Nivi. Nivi, where's your mother now? She pointed behind her. In the building. She's sick. She doesn't eat. She just cries. I looked for help, but no one comes here. David looked down the alley. It didn't look safe. He could hear strange clicking sounds deeper inside. He had heard stories. This part of the city, Zone 11, was called the Dump by locals, full of forgotten aliens, broken shelters, and gangs. But the child, she was shivering. Her eyes begged him. All right, he said. Take me to her. Nivi grabbed his hand. Her fingers were cold, small, and trembling. They walked deeper into the alley, past broken doors, past glowing trash bins. The smell got worse, but David said nothing. Finally, they reached a small doorway covered by metal sheets. Nivi pushed them aside and pulled him in. Inside it was dark, no lights. The floor was just dirt and old rugs. In the corner lay the mother. She looked worse than the child. Thin, bones showing. Her skin had lost its color. Her hair was matted, eyes closed. She looked like she hadn't moved in days. Nivi ran to her. Mama, I brought a human. He'll help. The woman opened her eyes slowly. One glance at David, then she looked away. You should go. Her voice was low, weak. It's not safe here. Humans don't come to the dump. David stepped closer. I couldn't walk away, not after hearing your daughter cry in the street. The woman said nothing. David looked around. You need food, medicine, clean water, she coughed. And who will give it? We are forgotten. My kind, we failed in war. My mate left. No one helps traitors. David sat down slowly on a broken chair. Then maybe it's time someone did. The mother looked at him. Why you? He thought for a moment. Maybe because no one helped me either, when I lost everything. The room went quiet. Nivi crawled into her mother's arms. The mother gently touched her daughter's head, tears silently falling from her tired eyes. David stood. I'll be back. I have some supplies at home, I'll bring them. You shouldn't return, the mother said. There are watchers, they don't like strangers. They don't like hope. David looked at Nivi. I'll take that chance. He left the dark building, heart heavy. As he walked through the rain again, something inside him changed. He had come to this world just to survive. But now, he wanted to protect. Not just for Nivi, but for the mother who still cried every night. Where no human dares to go, David returned the next night. He brought food, water, and some old medicine from his kit. He didn't know if the medicine would work on alien biology, but it was all he had. He wrapped it in a blanket and hid it inside a toolbox. This time he didn't walk openly. He wore a hood and kept to the shadows. The dump was more dangerous at night. As he neared the alley, he heard whispers. Not voices, but sounds. Clicking, hissing. Strange movements above him. He looked up and saw strange shapes crawling on the buildings, alien creatures with too many eyes and limbs that bent wrong. They watched him, but didn't attack. Yet. He stepped into the alley anyway. Nevi was waiting. She stepped out from behind a trash bin, her big eyes glowing in the dark. "You came back," she said with a small smile. David nodded. "Of course. Is your mother awake?" "She's waiting." They hurried back into the building. Inside, the mother sat up now, still weak, but her eyes were clearer. "You're foolish, human," she said. "But thank you." David placed the supplies down. Nevi grabbed a protein bar and began chewing. Her mother looked at the bottle of clean water like it was gold. David turned to her. "Your name. I never asked it." She hesitated. "Selah." "Selah," he repeated. "Why are you hiding here? Why not go to the shelters?" Selah gave a bitter laugh. "The shelters? They don't take people like me." "Like you?" She looked away. "I was the wife of a Varn military officer. When the war ended, he left me. Said I was weak, said I disgraced him for caring about the humans." David frowned. "So your own kind turned on you?" "Yes. I helped a human nurse once. Just once. They branded me a traitor. After that, no one would hire me. No one would feed my daughter. So we came here, to rot in the dump." David was silent. The war had ended 5 years ago. He was a refugee himself. His colony had been bombed out. That's why he came to this alien city, to start over. But maybe others never even got the chance. He looked at the weak mother, and then at the child, who had fallen asleep with her arms wrapped around a half-eaten bar. "Why didn't you leave this place?" he asked. Selah whispered. "Because someone is keeping us here." David's eyes narrowed. "Who?" She hesitated. "There are collectors. They come at night. They take the weak, the sick. No one knows where they go, but they don't return. We've seen others disappear, that's why I hide. That's why I told Nivi never to cry out loud." David stood slowly. "This place is a prison." She nodded. "A silent one." That night, David couldn't sleep. He thought of Nivi's voice in the alley, of Selah's hollow eyes, of the silent watchers crawling on the rooftops. Something dark was going on in Zone 11, and no one cared. Not the aliens, not the humans, not the government, but he cared. The next morning, David skipped his shift. Instead, he visited his old friend at the scrapyard, Bren, a human tech scavenger. "I need a drone," David said. "Small, quiet, with night vision." Bren looked confused. "What are you planning?" David leaned in. "Finding out who's taking the forgotten people." Bren frowned. "Zone 11? Are you crazy?" "Maybe. But there's a child there, her mother's being hunted." Bren sighed, then handed him a small disc. "Here, but if they catch you, I was never part of this." That night, David returned again. He flew the drone above the rooftops. He watched, from a distance. At exactly midnight, the shadows moved. 3 tall figures appeared from the smoke. They wore black armor. No emblems, no words. They entered the building next door to Selah's. 5 minutes later, silence. David checked the drone footage. The people inside that building, an old alien family, were gone, taken. No screams. No fight, just silence. David felt his heart sink. Selah was next. He rushed to her door. Selah opened it, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be here. They're close," David said. Pack your things. I'm getting you out. I can't. You can. She looked at her daughter, sleeping peacefully, then at him. Why are you doing this? David's voice was firm. Because no one else will. A promise made in the dark, the building shook. Not from bombs, not from storms, but from fear. David stood with Selah and Nevi inside the tiny rotting room. The little girl held her mother's hand tightly. Outside, the night was too quiet. The shadows had moved again. The collectors were near. They're one door away, David whispered. Selah was pale. She clutched Nevi close. You don't understand, David. They smell weakness. They hear panic. We can't move fast. We can't run. David stepped to the broken window and peered out. 3 tall, black-armored aliens stood near the alley entrance. No words, no emotions. They held rods that hummed in the air, disruptor staffs. One strike from those and your nervous system shut down. David turned back. Then we don't run. Selah blinked. What do you mean? We hide. And when they pass, we move quietly. Very quietly. I have a transport waiting 5 blocks away. If we can get there, I can get you out. Nevi whispered. Will you stay with us? David crouched beside her and nodded. I promise. No matter what, I'll get you both out. Even if I have to carry you. The girl nodded slowly, tears clinging to her lashes. Outside, boots crunched. David pressed his back against the wall. He could feel Selah's breath quicken, then knock, but not on their door. Next one down. Screams, a burst of blue light, then silence. David moved quickly. Now! He took Nevi in his arms. Selah grabbed a small bag and wrapped a worn cloth over her face. They crept out the back door, stepping into an old maintenance tunnel. The tunnel was dark, wet, and smelled of rust and mold, but David had a flashlight. He led them step by step. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed from behind. They're tracking us, Selah said. Then we move faster, David answered, holding Nevi tight. They ran for 5 minutes, then stopped at a rusted ladder that led to the street. David climbed up first. The hatch was stuck. Damn it. He pushed harder. It finally gave way with a loud clang. Too loud. The street above was empty, but not for long. He helped Nevi up, then Selah. They ran into the ruins of an old store. David closed the gate behind them. Inside, he turned to Selah. We rest here. 2 more blocks to go. She leaned against a shelf. Why are you risking your life? You don't even know us. David sat beside her. When I first came to this world, I was nothing. No home, no job. No one cared if I lived or died. One alien shopkeeper gave me a job. No questions asked, no pay at first. Just a chance. He looked at Selah. Everyone needs someone to believe in them at least once. Selah didn't speak. Instead, she pulled her sleeping daughter close and whispered. She hasn't smiled in weeks. But today, she held your hand like you were her father. David's eyes softened. Maybe I'm becoming one. Selah looked at him. Again. You'll never be safe again if you help us. Once they know your face, they'll hunt you too. I don't care. Selah's lips trembled. She looked away. Then we're in this together. A few minutes later, they made their way to the edge of Zone 11. That's when they saw it. David's transport. Burning. Smoke rising into the night sky. He cursed. They found it. Selah gripped his arm. We're trapped. David clenched his fists. No, not yet. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows. Bren, David's scrapyard friend. He waved them over. Come on! I brought another ride, but we've got to go now. They ran across the cracked road. Nevi's feet barely touched the ground. They jumped into a small hover van. As it rose into the air, beams of blue light shot up from the alley below, missed them by inches. But they were up, flying, free. For now. Inside the van, Selah held Nevi tightly. David sat near the window, watching the city fall behind. You kept your promise, Selah said quietly. David nodded. I'm not done yet. I'll find you shelter, food, a future. Selah stared at him, then said something he didn't expect. I don't want charity, human. I want a chance to live again, and to raise my child with dignity. You'll have it, David said firmly. You have my word. Outside, the night sky opened wide, stars glowing like distant promises, but behind them, deep in the dark ruins of Zone 11, the collectors watched and waited. The secret past of the mother. The sky was quiet now. David drove the hover van far, beyond the broken towers of Zone 11. The stars above glowed cold and distant, like they were watching everything in silence. In the back seat, Selah gently stroked Nivi's hair. The child had finally fallen asleep, wrapped in a warm blanket Bren had thrown in. David kept his eyes on the road, but questions burned in his mind. Why were the collectors after Selah? Why was this alien mother too weak to walk 2 blocks hunted, like a criminal? And why, when Selah had first looked at him, had he seen fear? Not fear for him, but fear of him. They reached the edge of the outer district, a safer place where humans and aliens lived together quietly. Bren had an old storage unit here, one with a false wall and secret entry. It wasn't much, but it was a start. David parked the van, turned to Selah, and said, We're safe, for now. Selah nodded but said nothing. He opened the unit and helped carry Nivi inside. There was a cot, a few boxes, and an old power core that gave off enough heat to keep the cold away. David made some hot food using a field cooker. He gave a bowl to Selah. Still, she stayed quiet. He finally asked, Selah, I need to know. Why are they hunting you? She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on her daughter's peaceful face. You wouldn't believe me, she whispered. Try. Me a long silence, then she began. My real name is not Selah. That was given to me after the war. My name is Commander Elvatha Kirun of the Varn High Fleet. David froze. He had heard that name before. Years ago. On war broadcasts. In enemy reports. She had been one of the top Varn commanders. Brilliant. Ruthless. She led fleets that destroyed entire human colonies. You were... She nodded. Yes. I was a killer. I followed orders. I believed humans were weak. That they were nothing but noise in the galaxy. David's hands tightened into fists. Then why are you here? Hiding like a ghost? Selah looked into his eyes now. Strong, honest. Because I disobeyed. She stood slowly, her back straight, like a soldier remembering who she was. They ordered us to burn a human colony, full of families, children, no weapons. Just people trying to rebuild. I refused. I stood in front of the ship's weapon controls and said no. David didn't speak. I was arrested, stripped of rank. My mate, another commander, spat on me in front of the high court. He took my daughter's name off our records, said she was weak like me. Then they threw me into exile. She looked down, but exile wasn't enough. I had seen the truth, that humans weren't weak. They were strong in ways we couldn't understand. And I had chosen your kind over my own. David was silent for a long time. Then he asked, Why didn't you tell me this before? Selah smiled sadly. Would you have helped me if you knew I once gave orders to kill your kind? David thought about it. The answer wasn't easy. Maybe not. Maybe he would have turned around and walked away. But now he had seen her pain, her daughter's hunger, their fight to survive. I don't know what I would have done, he said honestly, but I know what I'm doing now. And that's not changing. Selah's eyes softened. Why? She asked. David looked at Nivi, sleeping soundly for the first time in what looked like years. Because that little girl deserves a future. And so do you. Later that night, David stepped outside for air. Bren stood waiting. You didn't tell me you were hiding a war criminal, Bren said. She's not anymore. You're putting yourself on a target list. If the Varn High Circle finds out, I know, Bren sighed. So, what's the plan? David looked at the stars, then at the silent city far below. She gave up her name to protect humans. Now it's time someone protected her. Back inside, Sayla wrote something on a piece of cloth with a burnt stick. David looked over her shoulder. What's that? My old insignia, she said. Just in case I never tell the full story again. I want my daughter to know who I once was. And who I chose to become. David placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone anymore. And for the first time in years, she believed it. Hunters in the shadows. The storm began at midnight, not of rain, but of silence. A silence so deep, so heavy. It made even the insects stop buzzing. David felt it first. He sat by the doorway of the storage unit, sipping bitter tea. A wind brushed past, but it wasn't natural. It felt like something breathing down his neck. Watching. He stood up slowly and looked out at the dark alley between buildings. Empty. Then, he saw it. A shimmer. A shape. Something not quite visible, moving between shadows. He turned fast. Sayla, get Nivi ready, we're not alone. Sayla, already awake, grabbed the sleeping child. It's them. The collectors? David asked, reaching for his old stun baton. No, Sayla whispered. Worse. These are silencers. David frowned. What? Sayla's voice trembled. Not government, not bounty hunters. These are secret agents of the Varn High Circle. They erase those the Circle regrets. Even their name vanishes. From memory. David felt ice in his blood. They came for you? No, Sayla said. They came for Nivi. Outside, the shadows moved again. 3 tall figures stood still as statues at the edge of the alley. Their armor was jet black. Their faces were hidden behind smooth masks. No eyes, no mouth. Just blank metal death. David pushed a shelf against the door. We can't fight them, Sayla said. David didn't move. Then we don't fight. We survive. He pulled a switch. The lights inside flickered and then went off. Only red emergency glow remained. Sayla held her daughter close. What now? David pointed toward a trapdoor Bren had installed in case of trouble. That tunnel leads to the old metro lines. If we get far enough underground, their trackers won't work. Sayla hesitated. You first. David shook his head. No, I'll hold them off. You go. But no time. Sayla climbed down, holding Nivi tight. The girl clung to her silently, wide-eyed. David closed the trapdoor and covered it with an old rug. Then he waited. It didn't take long. A loud crack, and the door flew off its hinges. The silencers walked in like ghosts. No words. No warning. David stood in the center, stun baton lit and crackling. You picked the wrong human, he said. One of the silencers raised a pulse gun. David threw the baton, hard. It struck the gun, sparking violently. The weapon exploded in the silencer's hand. David ran. He knew the layout better than they did. He ducked through a wall panel, crawled through a vent, dropped into the old power room. Every second he bought. Sayla and Nivi got farther away. Meanwhile, Sayla ran through the dark metro tunnel. Her bare feet hit cold metal tracks. She didn't stop. Nivi clung to her, whispering, Mama, where's the human? He's right behind us, she said. It was a lie, but a needed one. Suddenly, light. At the end of the tunnel, Bren stood with an old cargo sled. He waved. Hurry, this will take you to the freight exit. Sayla jumped on. Bren hit the controls. The sled whooshed forward into the dark. Behind them, an explosion rocked the tunnel. Back at the unit, David lay on the floor, breathing hard. One silencer was down, short-circuited. The other 2 surrounded him. He coughed, smiling through blood. Took you long enough. The tallest silencer stepped forward, raised its hand, then stopped. A message flashed on its visor. New orders. Target missing. Priority shift. Elvatha Kirun's daughter must not leave the planet. They turned to leave, but David laughed. You lost her. The silencers paused. One turned back and slammed a fist into David's chest. Everything went black. Hours later, Selah and Nivi reached a hidden village, an old human settlement deep in the wastelands. No tech, no cameras, safe. Bren stood guard at the gates. Selah looked back toward the city. No sign of him? She asked. Bren shook his head. No. Tears filled her eyes. He said he'd stay with us. He bought you time. With his life. Nivi pulled her mother's hand. He's not gone. I feel it. Selah kissed her daughter's forehead. We can't go back, not yet. She looked up at the sky. If he's alive, he'll find us. But far beneath the ruined city, David lay in a dark cell, beaten, bloody, alive. He opened one eye and whispered, Still breathing, you bastards. A strange voice replied from the shadows. You helped her, you don't know what you've started, human. But now you're part of something bigger. David smiled weakly. Good. The choice that changed everything. The pain was sharp, but David was awake. He lay on cold stone. His shirt was torn. Blood dried along his face. One eye was swollen shut. The cell was dim and silent. No windows, no guards, just shadows that watched. He moved slowly, every breath a knife. Then, a soft voice came from the dark corner. So, you're the human who ruined a quiet execution. David looked up. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Not a silencer, not even a soldier. An old alien with golden skin and long robes. Calm. Hands behind his back. David grunted. And who are you supposed to be? The alien gave a small smile. I am Elder Votun. I speak for the High Circle. And you, David Marrow, are a very interesting problem. David sat up with effort. I've been called worse. Votun studied him. Do you know why we haven't killed you yet? David didn't answer. Because we don't understand you, the elder continued. You're a human with no power, no army. And yet, you stood against us. For a fallen Varn traitor and her half-breed child. David's voice was dry. Her name is Selah. The girl is Nivi. Say their names right. Votun tilted his head. Names mean little, but blood means everything. He stepped closer. The child. She carries both human and Varn code. That is dangerous, that is new. If she survives, she becomes a symbol of peace or war. David raised his head. She's a child, not a weapon, but the galaxy won't see it that way. Meanwhile, far across the wasteland, Selah stood at the edge of the human village. The people there were kind, farmers, builders, old soldiers. They offered food, shelter, silence. But Selah couldn't rest. David was missing. Every day she trained. She taught Nivi how to hide, how to run. But inside she fought herself. She had promised never to fight again, never to become the commander she once was. But the man who saved her, who smiled through, pain was out there alone and she felt it, deep in her bones. He needed her. Back in the cell, Votun gave David a tablet. It showed a photo, Selah and Nivi, standing in the sun, alive. David lunged, but the chains held. Votun nodded. Yes, they are safe. For now, David growled. If you touch them, the elder raised a hand. I don't want them dead. I want you to understand the choice you face. David's eyes narrowed. What choice? Votun sat on a small stool. You are human. You can walk free. We erase your name, send you off-world, and forget this happened. Or, you stay with them. Protect them. But the moment you step out of this cell, we label you a traitor to both sides. A threat. A mark on every scan. There will be no hiding. David looked down at his chained hands. And if I say no to both? Votun smiled. Then we leave your body in this hole and say you died during questioning. A long silence. David closed his eyes. He saw Nevi smiling at him with a half-eaten bar in her hand. He remembered Selah's voice when she whispered, "You're the only one who cared." Then he opened his eyes. "I choose them." Hours later, a body was found in the back alley of the city, burned beyond recognition. A human. The High Circle declared David Marrow dead, but in truth, he was alive, smuggled out by a rebel Varn officer who had once served under Selah. He woke up in a stolen ship, body sore, heart burning. The rebel pilot looked over. "You must be insane, human. Do you even know what you've done?" David smiled. "Not yet, but I'm about to find out." At the human village, Selah was training with an old staff when the alarm sounded. A figure stumbled in from the canyon. Selah. Turned, it was him, David, alive, barely standing, bruised but breathing. She ran to him, caught him as he fell. "You idiot," she whispered. "You came back." He smiled weakly. "Told you I would." Nevi ran to him, eyes wide with joy. "You're back." David reached out and pulled her into a hug. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not now, not ever." That night, Selah stood with him under the stars. "You made your choice," she said. David nodded. "I chose family." She looked at him. "Then we'll build one. Together." And in the dark sky above them, stars shifted. Change was coming, and they were ready. He became the father we needed. The sun rose slowly over the quiet village. Its light touched the cliffs, the dry fields, and the small homes made of stone and steel. But for one family hiding here, the sunrise meant more than just a new day. It meant survival. It meant hope. And for Nivi, it meant something else entirely. She sat outside with a blanket over her shoulders, staring at the horizon. Her small hands held a smooth stone David had carved for her. On it he'd written her name in both human and Varn letters. She traced the letters over and over. Inside the home, David stirred. His body was healing, bruises fading, ribs still sore. But he was stronger than the man who had entered that dark cell. Something inside him had changed. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. Selah stood near the cooking pot, watching him. "You talk in your sleep?" she said softly. David stretched, groaning. "Hope I didn't say anything embarrassing." "You said, I won't let them take her." David rubbed his face. "Sounds about right." She turned to him. "You're not her real father?" she said. Her voice didn't sound angry, just honest. "I know. But she believes you are." David looked toward the door, where Nevi sat watching the sky. "So do I," he said. Word spread quickly. Whispers traveled through old radio lines, and secret traitor routes. The traitor commander lives, her child survived, and a human walks beside them. Some feared it. Some were inspired, but others, enemies in the shadows, began to move. One day, a traitor came with news. "They're coming," he warned. "Not the silencers, worse, loyalists, the ones who think the war never ended." David stood quietly. "How long?" 2 days. Maybe less." Selah stepped forward. "Then we make our stand." David raised an eyebrow. "Here?" "Not just here," she said. "For every forgotten one who couldn't fight back. For every mother who hid in the dark. For every child who was thrown away." David nodded. "Then we build more." Then a wall. That night the village changed. Humans and aliens worked together. Farmers became guards. Old soldiers cleaned their weapons. Hidden tools became traps. Lights were dimmed. Children were sent deep into the caves, and at the center of it all, David stood beside Selah. He taught the villagers human tactics. Quick, Movement, surprise attacks, distractions. Sayla trained them in Varn defense formations, curved lines, sound traps, laser netting. Together, they became one force, one family. On the second night, the wind changed. They came. Dark shapes, black armor, eyes glowing red. No words. No mercy. But this time, they were met by fire. Traps exploded under their feet. Crossbow bolts flew from rooftops. And David, standing with a stun spear in hand, fought like a man who had everything to protect. They fought all night. At sunrise, the last of the loyalists retreated into the hills. The villagers stood bruised, bleeding, and tired, but victorious. Nevi ran into David's arms, eyes wide with joy. "You stayed," she whispered. He picked her up and smiled. "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." Weeks passed. The village became a symbol. More refugees arrived, alien and human. The sick were healed. The hungry were fed. Sayla sat in a chair each evening, Nivi in her lap, watching David fix broken tools for the new families. One night she said softly, "I never believed in second chances." David looked up. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I believe in you." Months later, a child wrote a message on a wall in the village square. It read, "He wasn't our blood, he wasn't our kind, but he became the father we needed." And that changed everything.